Israel's massacre of 15 Palestinian Red Crescent paramedics and rescue workers follows a similar pattern, and it goes like this. Israel commits a terrible war crime. The evidence for the crime is overwhelming. The Israeli state issues a pack of lies which the Western media eagerly laps up. In some cases, the lies are comprehensively debunked, but the rebuttal is either given coverage which is inadequate and lacking in prominence, or simply ignored altogether by many Western media outlets. Rinse and repeat. Newly released and frankly nightmarish video footage has exposed Israeli claims for what they are: lies. This will not stop the Western media from continuing to treat Israeli propaganda as credible. To recap, on the 23rd of March, Red Crescent medics, first responders, and a UN staff member were dispatched in 5 ambulances, a fire truck and a UN vehicle to collect Palestinians injured by Israeli attacks near Rafah in the south of Gaza so that they could receive medical treatment. The UN reported that all of the vehicles were hit and that contact was lost. A sole survivor testified that Israel had killed the crew in his ambulance. Access was only granted by the Israeli military 5 days later. En route, the UN team witnessed and videoed multiple atrocities as hundreds of civilians fled as the Israeli army shot at them, including a woman shot in the back of the head and a man shot as he tried to retrieve her. When the UN finally got there, they uncovered a mass grave, reporting that the paramedics and other workers had been killed one by one after driving their clearly marked vehicles. A forensic doctor testified that many had been shot at close range. One had his hands and feet tied. The UN also uncovered an attempt by the Israeli military to bury the ambulances and other vehicles. The evidence was overwhelming. But the IDF issued statements claiming their soldiers had opened fire towards Hamas vehicles and eliminated several Hamas terrorists. Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Saar, said the following.
Well, the IDF did not randomly attack an ambulance. Last Sunday, several uncoordinated vehicles were identified advancing suspiciously toward IDF troops without headlights or emergency signals. IDF troops then opened fire at the suspected vehicles.
The Western media was presented, on the one hand, with statements from the United Nations and the Red Crescent, evidence from a mass grave, evidence from a forensic doctor, and the testimony of a survivor. And on the other hand, statements from a military which has committed every war crime under the sun, which has a long and incontrovertible history of lies. What did the Western media do in those circumstances? They treated both as equally credible and plausible versions of events. One BBC journalist reported the following on the news channel.
You have, on the one hand, these allegations that Israel has committed an apparent war crime, a clear breach of international humanitarian law. But the Israeli military, in its latest statement, has been stressing that these were vehicles that it says were acting suspiciously and appeared to pose a direct threat to Israeli forces.
This is a classic modus operandi. To turn war crimes into a game of he says, she says, where we are encouraged to simply conclude that we can never really tell where the truth lies in the fog of war when it comes to Israel and Palestine, and nothing is ever allowed to definitively stick to Israel. Such is the sense of impunity that the Israeli military enjoys. They did not even see fit to make sure they destroyed all the possible evidence. Specifically, they failed to seize the mobile phone of one of their victims. The footage of the last moments of these medics and first responders was uncovered and published in the New York Times. The video is deeply disturbing, harrowing. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. The footage shows that, in total contradiction of Israel's claims, the ambulances had their lights on and were clearly marked, and they were ambushed by the Israeli army. The terrified and obviously unarmed paramedics are then subjected to a barrage of bullets. You hear one paramedic, Refat Radwan, reciting the Shahada, the Muslim declaration of faith, because he knows he's going to die. His last words were, "Forgive me, mother. Forgive me. I chose this path to help people. Forgive me, mother." He was begging for forgiveness from his mother because he had chosen to be a paramedic, as if this is a career which should be treated as having a possible death sentence. His body was then found in the mass grave with a bullet to his head. There's more. Sky News has revealed that the 15 paramedics and first responders were in an area not covered by an evacuation order, discrediting yet another Israeli lie that this was the case and that coordination was therefore required.
The Israeli military has also claimed that the vehicles were travelling without coordination in a combat zone. But a Sky News investigation has revealed that an evacuation order was not issued by the IDF for that area until at least an hour after the incident.
This Israeli military account is proven to be lies. As Trey Yinks, the chief foreign correspondent of Fox News, says, I've spoken with the IDF multiple times about this day and was told several vehicles were identified advancing suspiciously towards IDF troops without headlights or emergency signals. That is clearly not true. So what we have here is an unbelievably grave war crime. The massacre of 15 Red Crescent medics and first responders, which the Israeli military covered up and lied about. If this had been 15 Israeli medics and first responders, the Red Cross, butchered by Hamas, the media coverage would be deafening. It would be front page news and lead every news bulletin. Every Western leader under the sun would issue damning statements offering this up as specific evidence about the utter evil and depravity of Hamas. But these victims were Palestinian and the perpetrators were the Israeli military. On the BBC News website, it was 4 stories down yesterday, but most damningly, the headline was, video footage appears to contradict Israeli account of Gaza medic killings. Appears to contradict. What does this even mean? The footage definitively proves the Israeli account is a litany of lies. What possible room for doubt exists here? What does appear mean in these circumstances? What could it possibly mean for it maybe not to be the case? What, the footage is made up? It's CGI? What does the BBC really think here? Just imagine this footage had never been uncovered. Indeed, in the case of so many Israeli war crimes, there is no such footage, and Israeli claims, however discredited they are by a whole range of evidence, are simply allowed to stand. It gets worse. Today, the BBC published another article which was originally headlined, Israel admits mistakes over medic killings in Gaza. Admit mistakes. To be clear, we are talking about the mass execution of Red Crescent medics and first responders whose bodies were dumped in a mass grave, which the Israeli state systematically and deliberately lied about. If Russia had done this to Red Cross medics in Ukraine, would the BBC say that Russia had admitted mistakes? Mistakes when committing the gravest war crimes imaginable. And that becomes a whoopsie. This is disgusting. The BBC is disgusting. It's a public broadcaster we have to pay for, and they will face a reckoning for what they have done in this genocide. That BBC headline was then changed to Israel changes account of Gaza medic killings after video showed deadly attack. They cannot even state an objective fact about Israel's deceit when it's been proven without any possible other explanation that they've lied through their teeth. And even after it's proven, beyond any doubt, the Israeli authorities are lying through their teeth about this crime, they still go on and print Israeli statements as though they are credible and we should take them seriously. They don't do that with Russia. I'll read. The BBC article says, an IDF official briefed journalists on Saturday evening saying the soldiers had earlier fired on a car containing 3 Hamas members. Even using the term briefed here confers a sense of legitimacy and accuracy on Israeli propaganda. A Russian official briefed journalist, blah, blah, blah. Do you see that? It then says, when the ambulances responded and approached the area, aerial surveillance monitors informed the soldiers on the ground of the convoy advancing suspiciously. This is simply printed as fact, by the way. Yes, the article says there was no evidence any of the emergency team was armed. The bar was on the floor. We're supposed to be grateful for the BBC stating some facts here. But it also states, when the ambulances stopped beside the Hamas car, the soldiers assumed they were under threat and opened fire. Again, these claims uncritically regurgitated. They're not facts. That's presented as a fact. I don't believe that. I believe what I can see based on the evidence, which is the Israeli army deliberately massacred 15 medics and first responders after ambulances, which were lit up and driving at a normal speed, were ambushed by the Israeli military. They massacred them and threw them in a mass grave. Oh, honestly, though, wait till you hear this bit. Wait till you hear this bit. The soldiers buried the bodies of the 15 dead workers in sand to protect them from wild animals, the official said, claiming the vehicles were moved and buried the following day to clear the road. What do you even say? What do you even say at this point? The BBC is literally printed as a credible claim that the Israeli army buried 15 medics and first responders in a mass grave to protect them from fucking wild animals. Are you on crack? Are you people on crack? What is going on in your head when you wrote that down? Do you think you're a serious journalist? What is the editorial process here? You're literally writing about the mass execution of Red Crescent medics and first responders who've been dumped on a mass grave, and you have uncritically printed the suggestion by the Israeli military, who lied to you, that they'd be put in a mass grave to protect them from wild animals. You cannot make this shit up. A straightforward question. Do you honestly believe that the Red Army ambushed the Red Cross, massacred them, and threw their bodies into a mass grave and lied about it from start to finish? What, the BBC would subsequently print, oh, well, the Russian army claimed that they put the bodies in a mass grave, not even a mass grave, that the Russian army wanted to protect the bodies from wild animals. So they buried them all together. I'm sorry. I mean, actually, to be honest, I think it's worth just losing our shit occasionally at the insanity that we are being presented with here. This is not normal. We can never normalise this stuff. This is so fucked up. And one day, it will be seen as such, unless, of course, our species just goes down the fucking Swanee, which, at this rate, the BBC goes on. The Israeli military official denied any of the medics were handcuffed before they died and said they were not executed at close range, as some reports had suggested. Well, I'm glad we've got the BBC to uncritically regurgitate Israeli claims after they committed yet another obscene war crime and then covered it up. Great journalism there, as per. Well done. Where is your Pulitzer? Israel lies, kills, lies, kills, lies, kills. Back in 2022, they killed the Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, lied about it. They lied about Al-Shifa Hospital being the headquarters of Hamas. They lied about the killing of 5-year-old Hind Rajab and her family. They lied about the Palestinian refugee agency UNRWA being a Hamas front. They lied about the flour massacre when over 100 Palestinians were massacred while waiting for flour. I really could just keep going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. As the Israeli journalist Noga Tonopolsky says, I have no idea why anyone would again believe a word said by the IDF. But what's more disturbing is this won't change the Western media's modus operandi. If you think it will, you're going to be very disappointed. The Israeli journalist Barak Ravid says, this incident is an extremely difficult, further breaking point in relations between the IDF and the international media. The army and its spokesman lied to all the media outlets in the world in their initial response. The damage caused to Israel by this lie alone, even before the actual incident in which war crimes were allegedly committed, is enormous. Allegedly. I don't believe what he's saying there. I think Western media outlets will keep deferring to Israeli false claims and presenting them as credible and legitimate. As I've noted, Western media outlets have done rebuttals of Israeli claims before. CNN took apart Israeli claims about the so-called flour massacre. The Washington Post took apart Israel's claims about the November 2023 assault on Al-Shifa Hospital. The New York Times examined how, contrary to Israeli claims, 2,000-pound bombs were being dropped on so-called safe zones by the Israeli military. Why am I saying this? Am I all of a sudden going, well, no, let's congratulate the Western media. They've done their job, haven't they? I've just given you some examples, haven't I? No. You see, here's the thing. These are outlets which have systematically whitewashed this obscenity overall. It's not to say there aren't exceptions. Overall, they have deferred to Israeli narratives, whitewashed crimes, failed to spell out exactly what's happening. The point isn't just these rebuttals aren't frequent enough or given proper prominence or treated with the requisite gravity, i.e. as evidence of extreme war crimes. It's that they are orphaned from the wider narrative. Western media outlets should make clear that Israel has a proven record of entirely false statements about such atrocities. But like a perverse Groundhog Day, they act instead as though these rebuttals never happened. Note how they will say things like Hamas-run health ministry to undermine our faith in the official death statistics. That's why they do that. But even though we know Israel lies over and over again, you don't get, as you should have standard, previous Israeli claims have been proven to be unevidence and false. The narrative around Israel remains made out of titanium, that Israel is engaged in a war of self-defense and that there is a debate which can be had about whether that response is proportionate or not, with legitimate arguments on both sides, rather than a genocidal onslaught in which every war crime under the sun has been committed, leading to arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court, a case of genocide at the International Court of Justice, and a consensus among scholars of genocide that genocide is being committed. We can see how Western media outlets should behave by simply looking at how claims by Russian authorities are treated. Quite correctly, there is no deference there. This is emblematic of how the Western media has willingly allowed itself to become an integral part of Israel's propaganda machine. This is the greatest scandal overall of Western journalism of our age, and we must keep the receipts for the reckoning ahead. Please like and subscribe, leave your comments as ever, help us take on the pro-genocide media at patreon.com/OwnJoes84. Spread the video, listen to some podcasts, I'll speak to you in a bit.